Hi guys, so I'm here today to do the New York Times by the book tag, which is based on a large sort of compilation book that New York Times put out of interviews with authors. I believe it was created by Marie and I'll link her channel down below. I was first tagged by Rincey over at Rincey Reads about actually exactly a month ago, I think, and I've been meaning to do it since then, but if you know me, I take a little while to get around to tags, so here I am finally. Also during the time period between Rincey tagging me and now, Jen from Jen Campbell also tagged me, so both of their channels will be linked down below. But without further ado, let's go on with the questions. Question number one made me laugh slightly. It is, what books are on your nightstand currently? Because I had quite a few, so I brought them all here with me. These are all the books that are literally sitting on my bedside table, and those include the one that I'm almost finished, which is Blacklands by Belinda Bauer, which is a mystery thriller book, and you'll hear about this in my wrap up. We also have The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick, which I'm also almost finished, but I've been reading this book for like 2 months. It's one of those books that is a really good book, but it's very slow paced and there's not a lot of action or massive amounts of plot, so there's nothing really driving me to read it, so I pick it up and I enjoy it when I'm reading it, but when I put it down and if I get distracted by another book, I quite often don't pick it back up for another week. So I will get this one finished soon, but yeah, it's taken me a while. Then the book I've just started, because I'm almost finished, Blacklands, which is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch, and I'm only about 31 pages into this one. Another book which I'm about halfway through, but again I'm just not actively reading. I've put down, picked up, put down, picked up. More so in fact than The Man in the High Castle, and although like I said, I actually really like The Man in the High Castle, I'm just not constantly wanting to get back to it. This one I'm actually just not sure if I like, and that is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. So yes, 2 more. And then we have A Room of One's Own and The Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf, which are 2 of her essays. A Room of One's Own being the pick for this month's book club, and I just started this one. I'm only about 10 pages in, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And lastly, a book I haven't actually touched yet, but I would like to get to soon and have stolen off of my dad's bookshelf for that purpose, is Death at Intervals by Jose Saramago. And this is about a world in which death ceases to happen, and then I think things follow on from there, so I'm really hoping to get to this one soon. The next question is, what is the last truly great book you read? So I've got 2 to mention. The first one is the one that I've most recently read, which the experience of reading was truly great. I really enjoyed the experience of reading this book, so that's why it's great, and that is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is my second Jane Austen book and has proved to me that Jane Austen's work in general is just really great fun to read, because I felt very similarly to Northanger Abbey. And the next book I don't have a copy of because I listened to an audiobook, but it is Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates, and I would say this is the last book that I read which is truly great in the sense that it is important and significant and really kind of moved me, which I actually read a couple of months ago, but it's stuck with me since then, and I just think it's a truly great book. Next question is, if you could meet any author, dead or alive, who would it be? I'm not terribly fussed about meeting authors. It's enough for me to enjoy their books, but if I had to pick somebody in general, it probably would have been Terry Pratchett before he passed away. Obviously that's not possible now, so if I was to pick somebody that I might actually one day have the opportunity to meet, that would be Mary Beard, because she's just phenomenal, and I'd love to ask her all about her love of classics and its importance today, and just chat with her. She's just awesome. The next question is, what books might we be surprised to see on your shelf? Now, I find this question very difficult because I'm a very eclectic reader, and you probably know that from watching my channel. I quite like to read a bit of everything. I just like to read books that I enjoy, and if I haven't read a genre then I'm keen to try it usually. But the best things I could think of that you might be surprised to see on my shelf are these 2 books, which have been on my shelves since long before I started a booktube channel, and those are Vampire Stories by Bram Stoker, M.R. James, D.H. Lawrence, Anne Rice, blah blah blah, and Masterpieces of Terror and the Supernatural, a collection of spine-chilling tales, old and new. I don't think I really talk about that much horror on my channel, and I think that's because I haven't read much in the past couple of years, but when I was younger, before I started booktube, I really enjoyed a good ghost story. Like, a good old-fashioned like murderous tale or a ghost story like that. Something to be a bit spine-tingling, and that's when I got these books, neither of which I've read the entirety of, but I've rather dipped in and out of, and I guess, yeah, if I was going to go for anything that you might be surprised to see on my shelf, it would be these. Next question is, how do you organise your personal library? Again, I'd say eclectic kind of describes it. Personally, I like my bookshelves to look aesthetically pleasing to me, but also a major concern for me is to fit all the books in. I have a limited space, which is not no space, like I've got quite a few bookshelves, but that's it, there's no more space. So I would say I organise them how they will fit. So there's a lot of kind of Tetris stacking, which is my primary concern, and I think something that also goes along with, like I said, liking my shelves to look aesthetically pleasing, but also making the books fit, is kind of stacking things that are the same height together and a similar shape together. That doesn't really account for where all my books are though, so within that I like to organise in various different ways. If I own a lot of books in one collection or by a certain publisher, I like to make sure I keep all those together, like all my Oxford Royal Classics, all my Vintage Red Spines, all of my Penguin Classics, including Modern Classics, English Library editions, and Black Classics are all on their own shelves. After that, there's kind of a bit of a genre organisation in that I have like short stories together, poetry together, YA and children's books on one shelf, fantasy and science fiction on a couple shelves. All of my ancient history and university non-fiction are on the bookcases over there, but I also have a collection of non-ancient history non-fiction which takes up a shelf. Very clear. The next question is, what is one book you've always meant to read but haven't gotten around to yet, or what's a book you're embarrassed to not have read? I'm not embarrassed to not have read anything, it's just not a feeling I associate with books at all. However, there is a book I've been meaning to read for years. I wanted to read it for over a year before I actually bought a copy of it, and I bought a copy of it about 2 years ago, and that is just absolutely ridiculous. I have started it a couple of times and I have read the first few stories in it, but that is The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. This is a piece of medieval literature about a group of friends during the plague who go to stay in a sort of villa on the outskirts of Florence, and they all tell each other stories. So that's why I said I read the first couple of stories in this, but that is really nothing since this is a gigantic book. One day though, I promise. The next question is, disappointing, overrated, just not good. What book did you feel you were supposed to like but didn't? Do you remember the last book you didn't finish? No, I don't remember the last book I didn't finish. Mainly because there's things like obviously The Natural History of Dragons, which I just haven't finished yet but do want to finish. Not that I am averse to DNFing books, I DNF books all the time, I just can't remember what the last one I passionately put down and said to myself, no, I'm never going to try this again was. However, a book that I found really disappointing, and I'm just bringing it up again because everyone seems to be so shocked when I say it, so it's the best one that fits this category, I think, and that's The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. That book was way overhyped for me. I thought it was quite boring. It wasn't my cup of... I think the mistake was that that book didn't sound like my cup of tea. It isn't a book I ever would have picked up in a bookshop, never having heard anything about it. I don't particularly like books set during the Second World War. Just generally speaking, it wasn't a book that sounded like my kind of book. I read it though because everyone seemed to love it, and I read it and I didn't love it, and it was really disappointing. And I think that is just a lesson learned, and if something really doesn't sound like my cup of tea, just because other people like it doesn't mean I should read it. Which brings us to the next question, quite aptly. What kind of stories are you drawn to, and what do you steer clear of? Now, like I said, I am quite an eclectic reader, so I do like to dip my toes into lots of different things, and I'm willing to try things before I decide I don't like them. Therefore, I will try most things. However, if you want me to read a book desperately, then tell me there are dragons in it, because then I'm all over that. Tell me there are magical creatures combined with laughter, then, you know, I'm there, that sounds fantastic. Or tell me it retells ancient Greek myths in a clever way and not just, you know, stick Zeus in there for the sake of it. Then, you know, I'll probably immediately put that book on my wish list. Things I tend to steer clear of are few and far between, but like I said, I'm not crazy about books set in World War II, and I'm not really interested in kind of contemporary family and relationship sagas. And the penultimate question is, what book would you recommend for the president to read? Everyone I've seen do this has talked about the Prime Minister, President, etc. of their own country, which would be David Cameron here, who, if you know me, I think is a despicable human being and I really don't like him. If I could pick a book for him to read, it would preferably something that inspired empathy and compassion within the man. I'm not sure that book exists, but if it was something specifically on my shelf, it would maybe be something like Finding Home, which is the real stories of migrant Britain and talks about refugees and immigrants and people who have left their country of birth to move to the UK. Or Crossing the Sea with Syrians on the Exodus to Europe by Wolfgang Bauer, which follows the Syrian refugees in their escape from their war-torn country. A book I haven't actually read yet but would like to read quite soon and I have high hopes for is Owen Jones' The Establishment. And lastly, what do you plan to read next? Well, you know that the books that I've just started are A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf and The Lies of Locke Lamora, so I plan to get through these. I'd also quite like to read The Three Guineas, which is the other essay in this bind-up. If there was one other book on my bookshelves that is in the back of my mind going, read me, that would be Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I'm really hoping to get to this one soon because I loved reading Mansfield Park and I just want to read more of her stuff ASAP. Those are all the questions. I'm honestly not sure who hasn't been tagged in this because I have seen so many people in my subscription box do it already. So if you'd like to do this tag, consider yourself tagged. And in fact, I'm going to tag in particular people who have not started a YouTube channel but have been really wanting to start a YouTube channel and would like a first video to start with. I tag you. I would like you to do the New York Times by the book tag, and once you filmed it, please do leave me a link in the comments below my video or send me a tweet. But until next time guys, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye! Today I want to talk to you about authors whose works I want to complete. So these are all authors I've already read at least 2 books by. I so far really enjoy their stuff and they have quite a few other works out which I would like to read.